Don't you people know your place? Victoria Grant snapped as the silver tray shook in Amara's hands. The big white tent on the lawn went quiet for a heartbeat, the florist freezing with an armful of roses. The DJ pretending to check his playlist while really listening. Amara stood in her plain black dress and apron, her dark hands tight around the tray of crystal glasses that clinked in fear of falling. She had just brushed the edge of Victoria's designer dress with a napkin while passing. A tiny touch of lint she tried to fix before the rich woman saw it. I said, "Only staff at the back," Victoria went on, her smooth blonde hair perfect, her voice sharp as glass. "I don't want the photographs ruined by some maid standing in the shot." Heat rushed up Amara's neck, but she dropped her eyes and stepped back, like she had learned to do a long time ago. "Yes, ma'am," she whispered, even as something inside her curled into a tight, hurting ball. The backyard of the Grant mansion in Buckhead looked like a movie set, with white chairs, twinkling lights, and a long aisle of rose petals laid out for the wedding of the year. To Amara, it was just another Saturday job, another rich family she would clean up after, another set of faces that would forget she existed before the cake was cut. She had cleaned this house for almost 6 months now, riding 2 buses across Atlanta to get there, wiping marble counters and crystal sinks and pretending not to hear when Victoria spoke on the phone about keeping the help in line. Today was supposed to be special, though. Today was the day Victoria's only son, Michael, married Sophia, the girl with the warm brown eyes, who always thanked Amara by name. Amara had agreed to work extra hours, to set tables and pass drinks, and then clean up the mess long after the last guest left. All she wanted was to do her job, get paid, and be home before midnight to kiss her 9-year-old daughter on the forehead. She slipped back toward the catering table, trying to melt into the line of other workers in black and white. Rico, the head server, gave her a small, sorry smile. "You okay, Amara?" he asked under his breath as he lined up champagne flutes. She forced her lips to curve a little. "I'm fine," she lied, because the truth that every word from Victoria felt like sandpaper on old scars would not matter here. The band started to tune up, soft music floating over the chatter of guests in suits and glittering dresses. Near the bar, Michael stood with his groomsmen, tall in his navy tux, his dark hair a little messy like always, laughing at something one of his friends said. For a second, his eyes met hers across the lawn, and warmth flickered there. A quick softness that made her heart jump before he looked away. It was gone so fast she could have imagined it. "Amara." Victoria's voice cut through the air again like a siren. "You missed a spot on the terrace. Honestly, did no one teach you how to clean?" Amara bit down on the inside of her cheek and carried her tray past the whispering guests. She knelt to wipe an invisible speck off the stone floor, her knees pressing into the cold tile. As she worked, she heard 2 women at a nearby table murmur, "Victoria's in rare form today," one said with a little laugh. "You'd think she was the bride, not Sophia." The other woman snorted. "Well, when your son marries down, you have to control something," she replied, tapping a red nail on her glass. The words burned, but Amara kept her face blank, her rag moving in small circles. She had learned how to be invisible in rooms like this, how to swallow anger because rent and groceries did not care about pride. In the kitchen, out of the main view, she let out a slow breath. The catering staff rushed around her, grabbing trays of sliders and tiny crab cakes, shouting orders over the hum of the industrial dishwasher. "Don't let her get to you," said Alina, the head chef, wiping sweat from her brow. "She's been like that since we got here at dawn." Amara nodded, picking up a tray of water glasses. "She sees right through me," she said softly, "like I'm not even human, just a pair of hands." Alina shook her head. "Well, I see you," she replied, "and that boy out there, he sees you too." Amara frowned at that, but before she could ask what she meant, Rico poked his head in. "They're starting the rehearsal run," he called. "Victoria wants extra water at the front row." And she said, and I quote, "Not that maid. She moves too slow. Amara set her tray down a little too hard, water sloshing against the rims of the glasses. I can swap with you, Rico offered quickly. Before she could answer, Michael himself stepped into the kitchen doorway, the laughter gone from his face. Actually, Rico, I asked for Amara, he said, voice calm but firm. I want her on family row. That okay? His blue eyes landed on her again, full of something that looked a lot like care. Rico glanced between them, then shrugged. You're the groom boss, he said lightly. You get what you want today. As Michael walked closer, the staff melted away to other tasks. He lowered his voice. You all right? He asked Amara. I heard my mother earlier. She's stressed. Amara shook her head quickly. It's fine, Mr. Grant, she said, defaulting to formal words to hide the strange twist in her chest. I'm here to work. Michael winced. It's still Mike, he said softly. Like always. The words like always hung between them, heavy and secret, making Alina look up in surprise before she quickly looked away. Amara shifted her weight, eyes darting toward the door, to be sure Victoria wasn't there. You shouldn't call me that in front of your family, she whispered. You know how she feels. His jaw clenched. I know she feels wrong, he shot back, then took a breath. Listen, after the ceremony, I want you to stay. Not just in the back with the staff. I want you inside, at the reception, at our table. Her heart jumped into her throat. I can't, she said at once. Your mother barely wants me to breathe the same air. His gaze softened. You think I care what she wants today more than what I want? He asked. You're important to me, Amara. You've always been. Please, trust me. Before she could answer, Victoria's heels clicked on the tile, the sound sharp and fast. Michael, there you are, she said, sweeping in like a storm cloud that smelled like expensive perfume. Her eyes flashed to Amara and narrowed. I told them I did not want her near the front, she snapped. Why is she still here? Michael straightened, something like steel sliding into his spine. Because I asked her to be, he replied, his voice suddenly distant. And because I have a right to decide who stands near me when I get married. Victoria's smile did not reach her eyes. Of course you do, darling, she cooed, resting a manicured hand on his arm. But you don't want your wedding photos looking like a charity event, do you? She turned to Amara, her tone turning cold. Go wipe down the bathrooms or something. That's more your lane. The words hit like slaps. But Amara just nodded and set down the tray, fingers trembling. Later, as guests took their seats for the rehearsal, Amara scrubbed already shining sinks. The lemon scent of cleaner sharp in her nose. The mirror showed a tired woman in her early 30s with kind eyes and tight curls tucked under a plain headband. A few silver hairs at her temples from years of stress. She thought of her daughter Zuri, at home with their neighbor. Probably drawing pictures of princesses in dresses she would never wear. Amara had not wanted Zuri to see her mother in a maid's uniform at this house, not hearing the way that rich woman talked. I just clean, she had told Zuri when she left that morning. Everybody's got a job. As she wiped the last spotless counter, the door opened and Victoria walked in, checking her lipstick in the mirror, like Amara did not stand 2 feet away. You know, Victoria said casually, blotting her lip with a tissue. I tried to be generous with you. Amara paused, cloth in hand. Ma'am? She asked, unsure. Victoria gave a small, tight smile. We could have left you where we found you, she went on. We could have kept the wall between our world and yours. But my husband had a soft heart. Too soft, if you ask me. We brought you in, gave you work, let you be near this family. She turned, eyes sweeping over Amara's plain uniform. Yet here you are, trying to step out of line, making my son think you belong at our table. You've had your fair share. Don't forget that. There was something strange in her words, like she was talking about more than just a cleaning job, but Amara swallowed her questions. I'm thankful for the work, she said quietly. That's all. Victoria's gaze turned cutting. Make sure that's all, she replied, or I'll make sure you're never hired by anyone in this city again. When she was alone again, Amara pressed her hands to the cool marble counter and shut her eyes. Memories pressing hard against the door she kept in her mind. A little boy with messy hair and scraped knees, hiding under a kitchen table in a tiny apartment. The sound of social workers' footsteps. A signature on a set of adoption papers her trembling hands had signed because she believed it was the only way he'd have a better life. A name changed from Malik to Michael. She had followed his life from a distance in the news. The miracle child adopted by the Grants after their own baby girl died in a car crash. The boy who grew up in fancy schools while she scrubbed strangers' floors. When the agency had called 2 years ago to say the Grants needed a cleaner and asked if she wanted the job, it had felt like God playing a cruel joke. But she had said yes, because being near her son, even as a maid, was more than she had ever hoped for. The first day she came to the mansion, she had almost turned and run when Michael walked into the kitchen and she saw his face up close for the first time in years. He had been kind to her from the start, not in the fake way rich people were, but real. One late night, when Victoria was gone and it was just them in the quiet kitchen, he had asked about the small scar on his arm she kept looking at, the one from a childhood fall in her old apartment. The truth had slipped out in pieces, along with tears she had tried to hide. He had listened, his world tilting, as she told him she had been his first mother, the one who had held him when he cried as a baby, the one who had signed him away because she could not feed him. He had shown her the adoption papers he had found in a locked drawer, with her name at the bottom. That night, he had called her mom in a broken whisper, and then hugged her so tight she could hardly breathe. But he had also begged her to keep it secret, at least for a while. She'll never accept it, he had said of Victoria, voice thick. She'll say you're using me. Just give me time. Then his father had died suddenly, and the time never felt right. When he asked her to work the wedding, she knew Victoria hated the idea of that woman being anywhere near the guests. If you must have her here, Victoria had sniffed, she will be staff, nothing more. Amara had wanted to refuse, to say she would not let herself be paraded like some servant in her own son's house. But when Michael had looked at her, eyes full of hope and hurt, and said, "Please, Mom, I just want you there," she had agreed. For love, she had put on the black dress and the apron and said she would answer to Maid, if that was the price of watching her boy say, "I do," now. Standing in the bright bathroom of a house that was both his and not his, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Maybe it would have been better to stay away, to keep loving him from far. Yet, every time she saw him smile at Sophia, every time she saw him pick up a piece of paper someone dropped so the worker would not have to bend, her heart swelled with the proud ache only a mother could know. When she stepped back out into the hallway, she nearly crashed into Sophia, who was pacing in her white dress, veil pinned but not yet lifted, cheeks flushed with nerves. "Oh, Amara, I'm sorry," Sophia said, steadying her. "You okay?" Amara nodded quickly. "I'm fine, honey," she answered, the endearment slipping out before she could stop it. Sophia smiled. "You always call me honey," she said. "Makes me feel like I have a real mama here today. Not just a woman barking orders." Before Amara could reply, Victoria's sharp voice floated down the hall. "Sophia, it's almost time. Stop wandering," she called. She spotted Amara and frowned. "Why are you still on this floor?" she demanded. "Guests are arriving." She walked up and, with a sudden, cruel motion, grabbed at the small silver locket around Amara's neck, the one piece of jewelry she always wore. "And what is this?" Victoria said. "I told staff, no personal jewelry. We don't need cheap trinkets in the photos." She jerked, the chain snapping, the locket falling and rolling across the floor. It popped open on impact, a tiny photo flipping into the light, an old picture of a baby boy, with big dark eyes and a crooked half-smile, wrapped in a cheap blanket. Sophia gasped, bending to pick it up. "He looks just like Michael," she breathed, eyes wide. Victoria's face went pale, then hard. "That's none of your concern," she snapped. But her hands trembled as she reached for the locket. Sophia held it out of reach. "Why does your maid have a baby picture that looks exactly like my fiancé?" she asked slowly, looking from the photo to Victoria, then to Amara, whose breath was coming fast. Silence thickened in the hallway. Amara's eyes met Sophia's, full of fear and years of swallowed truth. "Sophia," Victoria said, her voice sharp, "you need to focus on your vows, not on some silly coincidence." She turned to Amara, her expression pure warning. "You keep your mouth shut," she hissed under her breath, "or you will regret it." With that, she snatched the locket from Sophia's hand and dropped it in her own purse, like she was locking a secret away again. Sophia watched her, hurt and suspicion mixing in her gaze. "I think there's a lot I don't know about this family," she whispered to Amara, before Victoria grabbed her arm and led her away. The ceremony itself was beautiful on the surface. The sun dipped low over the trees, casting golden light over flower petals and white chairs. Sophia walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her dress glowing, her eyes shiny with tears. Michael stood at the front, his face full of love when he looked at her, his voice steady when he said his vows. Guests dabbed their eyes, phones held high to record the perfect moment. Amara watched from the very back, near the sound system, her heart full and broken at the same time. She wiped tears with the back of her hand when nobody looked, wishing she could stand where Sophia's mother stood, wishing she could be known. As they kissed and everyone cheered, Michael's gaze found her over the heads of the crowd. For 1 second, his joy cracked, and she saw the storm under it: fear, guilt, anger. He gave the smallest nod, like he had decided something. At the reception under the big tent, the music turned loud, the drinks flowed, and laughter covered the old cracks, like fresh paint. Amara carried trays of food, weaving between tables, catching bits of talk about honeymoons and stocks, and who had gained weight since the last charity gala. She felt Victoria's eyes on her often, checking, threatening, guarding the line between us and her. During the father-daughter dance, as Sophia spun in the twinkle lights, Michael slipped away to the edge of the tent where Amara was refilling pitchers of sweet tea. "We can't keep doing this," he said quietly, his body loose, his face tight. "I saw what she did with your locket. I heard her. I can't let her keep walking all over you like you're an old rug in this house." Amara shook her head quickly, panic flickering. "Mike McHale promised," she said. "This is your day. Don't start a fight with your mother, because of me." He looked at her like she had slapped him. "Because of you," he repeated. "Amara, this isn't just about you. It's about me too. It's about us." His voice dropped even lower. "You are my mother, and I am done pretending you're not." Her breath caught. "You'll blow up your whole family," she whispered. "She'll turn everyone against you. She has money, friends in high places. The whole city loves her charity work." He shrugged, a sad, brave gesture. "Then let it blow," he said. "I'm tired of building my life on her lie. I married a woman who hates lies. I want my kids someday to know where they come from, all the way. I'm going to tell the truth tonight, in front of everyone." Amara grabbed his wrist, voice shaking. "Please don't," she begged. "I can take her words. It's only 1 day." He covered her hand with his free one, squeezing gently. "It's 1 day for you," he said, "but it's every day for me." Soon after, the DJ tapped the mic. "Okay, everyone, it's time for speeches from our happy couple," he called. Guests clapped and whistled, some a little tipsy, some already checking their watches for when they could leave. Sophia spoke first, her voice bright and warm, thanking her parents, Michael's family, the staff, even calling out, "Thank you, Amara, and the whole team, for making everything so beautiful, which earned a small cheer from the workers at the back. Victoria stiffened at that, taking a long drink of champagne. Then Michael took the mic, clearing his throat. I had a whole speech written, he began, smiling a little, about how I met Sue, about our first date at Waffle House, about her saying yes when I was so nervous I dropped the ring. Laughter rippled through the tent, easing the air. But standing here, I realized there's something else I need to say first. Something I've kept quiet for too long. Victoria's hand tightened around her glass, knuckles white. Amara set down the tray she was holding, her heart beating loud in her ears. Most of you know part of my story, Michael went on. You know I was adopted when I was 3, that Victoria and David Grant took me into their home after losing their little girl. You know they gave me their name, their love, their world. He paused, glancing at his mother. What you don't know is that before that, I had another name, I had another home, and I had another mother. A murmur started around the room. Victoria stood up a little. Michael, this isn't the time, she said through gritted teeth, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. He looked at her, pain in his gaze. It's exactly the time, he replied softly into the mic, because I made a promise to that other mother when I found her again, and I've been breaking it every day since. He set his champagne flute down on the head table with a small clink that sounded final. When I was a baby, my first mom was young, scared, and alone, he said. She lived in a tiny apartment on the south side, working 2 jobs, doing the best she could. She loved me enough to let me go when the social worker said a rich family could give me more. She signed papers with shaking hands, then cried for years wondering if I was even alive. She cleaned houses for people who had no idea that the woman scrubbing their toilets was the one who had given up her own child so he could have marble floors. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Some wiped tears they did not expect. Victoria's face had gone from white to red. Michael, sit down, she hissed. You're embarrassing yourself. He shook his head. No, Mom. Victoria, he said quietly, I'm finally making you proud of the truth instead of the story you built. He turned, holding out his hand toward the back. Amara, he called, his voice steady. Can you come up here, please? Every head turned to find her. Amara felt like her feet were glued to the floor, but Rico nudged her gently. Go, he whispered. It's time. Her legs shook as she walked through the maze of tables, the whispers washing over her like waves. Isn't that the maid? Someone said. What's she doing? Another asked. When she reached the front, Michael stepped down from the little platform and helped her up, like she was as important as the bride. Standing under the soft lights, she wanted to disappear and to stay forever at the same time. This is my first mother, Michael said, the words clear and strong. The woman who gave birth to me. The woman who held me when I cried. The woman Victoria has tried to keep in the shadows as if she's something to be ashamed of. Gasps broke out. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks, but her eyes shone with pride, not shock. I knew something was wrong today, she said aloud, voice trembling. Now I know what. Victoria stepped forward, face twisted. You ungrateful boy, she snapped, forgetting the mic was still on. After everything we gave you, you choose this woman over your own mother. You drag our family name through the dirt with some girl from the projects. The word girl dripped with poison. The room went so quiet, even the air seemed to hold its breath. Michael's jaw clenched. You didn't give me everything, he said calmly, his voice somehow louder for how soft it was. You gave me a home, yes? You gave me school, yes. But you tried to take my truth. You tried to erase the woman who gave me life because she didn't fit your picture. That's not love, Mom. That's control. Tears blurred Amara's eyes. She reached for the mic with a shaking hand. Michael, please, she whispered. You don't have to do this. I'm okay. I've always been okay. He turned to her, his own eyes wet. You shouldn't have had to be okay alone, he said. You should have been seen. Sophia stepped up beside them, taking Amara's other hand. You're my family too, she said firmly. If Victoria can't see that yet, that's her journey, not mine. A soft murmur of agreement spread through the guests. One older man near the front stood up. Son, he called, takes guts to stand up to your mama like that. But he's right, Vicky. That woman's got more class in how she stands there than most of us ever will. Little by little. Others nodded, some even clapping, until the tent filled with a strange sound. People cheering for a maid who was no maid at all. Victoria's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. For the first time that day, she looked less like a queen and more like a scared, aging woman who had built her whole life on a shaky tower of control. She sank back into her chair, tears finally spilling as she stared at the three people on the stage, who used to be her whole world and now stood slightly out of her reach. Later, when the music started again and people returned to talking and dancing, she walked slowly up to Amara, her hands twisting a linen napkin. I was wrong, she said quietly, the words stiff on her tongue. I was afraid of losing my place, of being less important. But I forgot he's not something to own. He's a person, and you are his mother. Amara studied her, seeing not the rich woman who had sliced her with words all day, but a broken human being. We are both his mothers, she answered softly. If you want, maybe we can learn how to share. Months later, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, the scene was very different from the grand white tent. Amara's small apartment smelled like fried chicken and cornbread, the TV playing a football game softly in the background. Siri sat at the table, doing homework, her pencil tapping, while Michael and Sophia snuggled on the couch, looking at baby name lists on his phone. Victoria sat in a simple chair by the window, a bowl of green beans in her lap, snapping the ends like she had seen Amara do. Her fancy pearls were gone, her hair in a plain ponytail, her nails bare. I still don't know how to do this right, she admitted, breaking beans with clumsy fingers. But I'm trying. Amara smiled as she stirred the pot on the stove. Trying is a good start, she said. We all got things to unlearn. She looked around at the crowded little living room, at the strange, beautiful family that had formed out of truth and tears instead of lies and fear, and her heart felt full after dinner. When the dishes were stacked and the sun dipped low, Zuri climbed into Amara's lap. Mama, she asked, why does Grandma Victoria always say sorry? Amara chuckled softly, kissing the top of her daughter's head. Because she forgot something important for a long time, she said. And when grown-ups forget who people really are, they can hurt them without meaning to. Now she's remembering. Zuri frowned thoughtfully, then brightened. I like when people remember, she said. Amara held her tighter, feeling the truth of that all the way to her bones. She thought of the day in the big white tent, when her son had pulled her out of the shadows and into the light. When he had chosen truth over comfort in front of everyone. She knew now that money and big houses and fancy names could fall apart in a second if they were built on lies. But love that dared to tell the truth could build something no storm could tear down. And that was why the richest life is the one where you see every person's real worth and treat them like family.